Today's daf yomi is Bava Basra daf Kuf Yud Aleph. We're going to start on the last line in Kuf Yud Amud Beis. The daf yomi says that a man inherits his mother va'ish es ha'imo. Now today's daf yomi is dedicated for Shmira for the Chayalim, Matzal for the Shvuyim, and Yeshua for Am Yisrael and the Seis Tzara. It says a man inherits his mother, Menani Mili. What's the source for the idea that a man inherits his mother? And also, in a case where you're inheriting the mother, Rashbam says the daughter does not. That the son comes before the daughter, meaning to say that if there's a mother and a son and a daughter, the son inherits and not the daughter. What's the source for that? So we want to know, first of all, that the son inherits the mother, and second of all, that the son inherits and not the daughter. So Minahani Mili, so the Tana Rabbana, the rabbi Tana the Bryce on top of 111a at the top, the Kol Bas Yoreshes Nachalami Matos Bnei Yisrael. It says that any daughter who inherits from the tribes of the Bnei Yisrael. And Rashbam explains that this is the end of the verse is referring to the fact that if there is, and the limud is coming from the end of the verse, it says that if there will be one from the tribe, a woman from whose father was from one tribe, she has to marry somebody from that same tribe so that the inheritance will not pass to another tribe. But Rashbam explains, as we're going to stand off Kuf Chaf, that only applied in the generation of the wilderness, of the Midbar. And so later and soon we're going to explain that since she inherits from two tribes and she's married to the tribe of her father, nevertheless, the inheritance of the mother would pass to another person. And the Gemara is going to ask that case, and the Gemara is going to explain it. But anyway, the basic point is we see from here that there are two tribes. Heich Bas, on top of 111a, Heich Bas Yoresha Shnei Matos. How can she be inheriting from two tribes? Elazusha Avia Mishevet Echad, V'ima Mishevet Achar. Must be that her father comes from one tribe. She inherits from him. And her mother comes from another tribe. And so therefore, since her father's from one tribe and her mother's from another tribe, and Rashbam explains that, let's say, for example, her father's from the tribe of Reuven and her mother's from the tribe of Shimon. And when her mother marries her father, she had brothers. Her mother had brothers. Hayula Achel Ima Shel Hayula Achin Ima Shel Basar. This mother had brothers, and they inherit their father. And so therefore, because that the Rashbam explains that there would not be a transfer of inheritance if during the time of the marriage, because the pasuk is only talking about if when the time of the marriage it was not appropriate to inherit the assets of the father, but nevertheless afterwards her brothers died, and afterwards her father died, and her father had inherited back from his sons, and she inherited from the father. And then under those circumstances, the mother and the father died, and they only had this girl. And so therefore she inherits from two tribes. She inherits from her mother's tribe from the tribe of Shimon, and her father's tribe from the tribe of Reuven. And that's what we're talking about. So we see from here that she can inherit. Back to the Gemara. This only teaches us that the daughter can inherit from her mother. How do we know Ben Minayin? How do we know a son also inherits from his mother? Amras Kavachomer. It's learned out from a Kavachomer. Ma Bas Shahura Kocha Benichse Ha'am. Yafa Kocha Benichse. Just like a daughter who is less strong when it comes to inheriting her father's assets, because we know that the son comes before the daughter, but nevertheless, she's able to inherit the mother by, the pasuk says specifically, when her mother dies, she can inherit her. So too, Ben Sheyafek Kocho B'Nechsei, a son who has more power by the assets of the father that he inherits before the daughter. For sure, he should have more strength, and be able to inherit by the assets of the mother. When Malcolm Shabbat, and from that place, we learn out another halacha. Mala alon ben koden labas, just like by a father, when the son inherits the father, he comes before the daughter. Avkan also too, when inheriting the mother's assets, even though the whole limud is derived from a daughter, nevertheless, we're going to say ben kodem labas, that if the mother dies and she has a son or a daughter, the son inherits and not the daughter. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Yossi, Amar Mishum, Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav, they argue and they said, Echad ben v'echad abas shavim b'nechseim. They say, no, the son does not come before the daughter when it comes to inheriting the mother. The son and the daughter are equivalent when it comes to the assets of the mother. My time, and what's the source? They based it on the principle, Dayo level minadin lios kenidon. That you cannot learn out from a Kal Chomer more than the initial source. So since the initial source is a daughter inherits, she's always going to inherit. But Tanakama lo kadarish dayo. Does the Tanakama not darish dayo? This principle that you can't push a Kal Chomer beyond the initial source of the law. But dayo the right. So how can the Tanakama reject it? It's a biblical law. The Tanya we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu. It says in that pasuk after Miriam talked Saras, midin Kal Chomer. Keitzad vayomer Hashem al Moshe v'avia yarak b'fanea haloti kalem shivas yamim. That after Miriam spoke Lashon Hara and Hashem gave her tzaras, and then she was healed, Hashem said to Moshe, if her father had insulted her, she would have been isolated for 7 days. Now that Hashem has insulted her, so she should be isolated for 14 days. So for the divine presence, it should be 14. How do we go from 7 to 14? So Reb Chaim HaKohen, cited by the Tosfos, here explains that once you go beyond the unit of 7, even a little bit, we go the next unit that Torah discusses with, like a mitzvah, is 7 days. So therefore, we go to 14. Tosfos Tanida discusses that it's based upon the amount of proportion that God gives into the creation of the child. But anyway, we see from here that it's a principle. So we see from here that we don't understand it there because the principle of dayo, that since the whole source is 7, you can't say more than 7. So the Gemara says, Ba'alma darish dayo. Generally speaking, we do expound dayo, but this case is different. Damar kra mimatos. The pasuk says mimatos, makish mata'aim or mata'av, because there's a specific comparison in the verse. We compare the inheritance of the mother to the inheritance of the father. Ma mata'av ben kodem labas. Just when it comes to the father, ma mata'av. Just like when it comes to the father, the son comes before the daughter. Av mata'aim ben kodem labas. So therefore, that's how the Tanakhama says the son comes first. Rabbi Nitai Savar. Uvda, Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav. Rabbi Tai wanted a paskin like Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav that the son and the daughter inherit equally from the mother. Amrei Shmuel, Kaman ki Zechariah. You want a paskin like Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav? Efes Zechariah. Zechariah is we don't paskin like him. Rabbi Tabla Avad Uvda, Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav. Rabbi Tabla ruled like Rabbi Zechariah. I'm like Rabbi Nachman, my eye. He says, why are you ruling him? So he says, because he cites Rav Chanina bar Shammai. So the law is like Rav Zechariah ben Akatzav. He says, Ahadarbach. He says, go back, below. If you're not going to recant, Mafkinalach Rav Chanina bar Shammai me'unech. I'm going to remove Rav Chanina bar Shammai from your strength. Means say, I'm going to excommunicate you. Rav Huna bar Chia Savar Mavet Uvda to Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav. Rav Huna bar Chia wanted a pasuk like Zechariah. Amrei Rav Nachman, my high. Says, what are you doing? Amrei Rav Huna Marav Halacha Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav. He says, because I have a statement there. Rav Huna said in the name of Rav, the halacha is like Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav. So Rav Nachman said to him, Amrei Eshlachlei, should I ask him if he really said that? Ichsiv. So Huna bar Chia got embarrassed or nervous, meaning to say he thought that there's a lot of different explanations, but at the end of the day, he wasn't as certain that really the statement was that Rav Huna bar Rav said that halacha like Rav Zechariah ben Akatzav. He was like on the witness stand and he hesitated. So I'm like, Hashtaki nach nafshe Rav Huna. Rav Nachman gave him some mussar. He said, if Rav Huna had died, he trusted lekabali. You would be fighting to accept what I said, and you wouldn't accept it. So the EU commands Savra. So Rav Nachman, who said it was not like Rav Zachariah ben Akatzav, who does he hold like? He holds like Kiyad Rav Shmuel, the Amar Travayo, Ein Alach Rav Zachariah ben Akatzav says, well, it's not like him. Just this, in the case where a mother passes away, the son inherits and not the daughter. Mistanach, so now the Gemara tells us a story. Mistanach for Azal Rabbi Yonah, Rabbi Yanai, Akasvei to Rabbi Simai. Rabbi Yanai was walking once leaning against the shoulders of Rabbi Simai. Shamei va'asi Rabbi Yehuda Nisiel Apayu. So Rabbi Yehuda, so basically he was walking on the shoulder, leaning on the shoulder of Rabbi Simai's attendant. And Rabbi Yehuda Nisiel was coming towards him. Amalei bar inish asal kibalna. He said, so Rabbi Simon said to Rabbi Yanai, this man is coming to meet us. He is very nice. He's very distinguished, and he's wearing a special garment of a Torah scholar. Or else maybe he's very good looking. So I'm going to give two explanations. Others say maybe he was wearing a very nice hat. He was dressed in a certain way. So he says, when Rabbi Yanai came to see Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, Gashasha, he felt his garment, and Amalei, Dain Chiure Kesak. He says, no, this is not a special garment. Its measurements for becoming Tumah are not like a beautiful garment, but rather like a sackcloth. Meaning to say you need more of it in order for it to become Tameh. A garment is 3 by 3 tefachim. A sackcloth is 4 by 4. He says, this isn't all that. So anyway, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya sees Rabbi Yanai, and he says to him, how do we know that the son comes before the daughter to inherit the mother? Meaning to say, how do we know the pasuk like the Tanakama? Just like we said on the top of the page, we learn that from the Xeris Kasav. And the son comes before the daughter. So, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, I asked him a different question. Imam Matav Bachor no Talpishnaim. Well, in that case, when you inherit the father, the firstborn takes twice. Maybe also here Av Mataim Bachor no Talpishnaim. Maybe the son should inherit twice also in this case. So when Rabbi Yanai heard this, Amrei Shmaye Shamei, he says to his attendant, "Go, let's go." Leistin Tzvi Lamelaf. He says, "This guy does not Leistin Save Lamelaf. This guy doesn't want to learn. He just wants to ask us these questions." Meaning to say, the question was not necessarily a bad question, but if he would have done a little bit of research, if he would have looked at it for 1 minute, he would have got the answer. So he says, I'm not wasting my time giving this guy an answer. Let him look it up. Let him do the Google search. He'll figure it out. Amar Abaye, so the time of what's the reasoning that the firstborn does not take a double portion in the assets of the mother? Amar Abaye, Makra says, V'chol Asher Yimatzelo. It says the firstborn gets double with everything that'll be found to him. Lo, v'lo love, anything that comes from the father, but not for the mother. And so therefore he doesn't get a double portion of the estate of the mother. So the Gemara says, when do we see he doesn't get a double portion of the estate of the mother? Maybe that's when the mother's a widow of a bachor shenasa besula. But if the mother would be a virgin, maybe he would have gotten twice from her. If she when she got married, she was never married before. Oh no, it says kihu reishis no, because he is the firstborn, and so therefore he gets double portion. Meaning to say reishis oh no. When do you get double portion? You're the first of your father's seed, not the first of your mother's. Gemara says that can't be only bile. But isn't that, don't we need that first pasuk, gracious? Oh no, to teach us that if you're born after a miscarriage or a stillborn, that you do not, that if you're born after that, you still get entitled to the double portion. You're a bechor l'nacha. Why? Because it says, Kiyu gracious, oh no, mishalibo davalav, the one who the father cries about the most. Yatza zesh ainli bodavalav, and about a miscarriage, he's not going to cry as much as for a viable child that Rahman al passes away. So the Gemara says, no, imkain, if it would just be based upon that, if it would just be for for Nephalim, Makra Kihu Rashis own. It would have the pasuk just would have said Kihu Rashis own. Why does it say my ono? Shmaminat Darati, we see both things. We see that the son inherits before the daughter in the case of the mother's inheritance, and we see that the firstborn who's born after a baby who had a miscarriage, a baby who was a stillborn, that firstborn also gets a double portion. So then the Gemara says, "Ve'ema vakati ema hani mili almon shenasa basula." Maybe when do you get the firstborn from the mother? If it's a widow who marries a virgin, of a bachor shenasa basula. But if it's a young man who's never been married who marries a virgin, achinami the shakil. Maybe we'd say under those cases. Maybe we would say under those cases that the daughter that he wouldn't get. That he would get a double portion in the estate in that case. If it would be a unmarried man who marries an unmarried woman, that maybe he would get a double portion of first marriage on both parts. The Gemara says, Amarkra, lo mishpat ha-bechora. Mishpat ha-bechora ish, lo mishpat ha-bechora isha. No, so he says, based upon the pasuk, lo mishpat ha-bechora, which means that for father, he gets a double portion, but not for mother. And now it says in the pasuk for ish es ishto that a man inherits his wife, and the wife does not inherit the husband. So how do we know the husband inherits the wife, and how do we know that the wife does not inherit from the husband? The wife does not inherit from the husband. So the Gemara says, "Tana Rabbanan sheiro." It says in the pasuk. When it says the word shero, this refers to his ishto, this refers to his wife. This teaches us that the husband inherits the wife. I might think, well, she also could inherit him. It says the verse, Talmud Lomar, v'yarash osa. It says in that pasuk, it says, v'yarash osa. And he will inherit her, which teaches us who Yoresh Otave and he Yoresh Oso. So from this pasuk we see that the husband inherits the wife, and the wife does not inherit him. Who Yoresh Osave, he Eina Yoresh Oso, and he Yoresh Oso. Mar says, "Vai cry lavachik Stevie," but this pasuk was not written like that. The pasuk doesn't say that. The pasuk rather says. So meaning to say, it says in the Satim is Shero. That implies that the wife inherits the husband, not that the husband inherits the wife. So the Gemara says, "Am Rabbi Karatzachi." So he says, you have to read the verse like this: "Unesatim es nachaso lekarov elav." You give the inheritance to the one who is his relatives. Take out the word shero, and then say shero v'yarashota. You give his inheritance to his relative, and then it says shero, which means and if his wife will die v'yarashota, then he'll inherit her. Meaning, just dissect the verse like that. So Amarava Sakina Harifa Mipaslik, right? You're chopping up the verse and dissecting it like a surgeon. This is what the pasuk means, says Rabbi. Sheiro lo, you should give the inheritance of his wife to him, meaning to say, kosavar gorin mosifin, that we take away the letter, the lamed from before the she'er, and put it on the end of the verse low. So basically, we see from here, he says, give the inheritance of his wife to him. You sometimes take away and then add on elsewhere and expound it. See, the first approach of Abaye was cutting out words. Rav is just cutting out letters. That's the difference in the commentaries. So the Gemara says, So hold on, we're just going to stop the recording, but we'll still go on a little bit. There's another approach